Going live. Hey, everybody, it's showtime. Showtime, and I'm a giant nerd. All right.
Do. Oh, yeah.
Ready to go live. Hello, everybody. It's a dinosaur. His name's Rex and blah 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 bloop. Do. Yeah! This episode is sponsored by Quack Alert. They are ridiculously in love with ducks. I have no clue why, but you know what? It's cool. Hey everybody, it's Chris from Charity Board Gamer. Thanks for joining us and tuning in tonight. I'm excited because I get to talk to one of the amazing people behind Blue Peg, Pink Peg, and I actually get to talk to the Pink Peg, or also known as Piranha Peg, right? Or is that what you put on Twitter, right?
Piranha Pig, yeah.
Piranha Pig. And I've got the image. I can try to pull that up in a second. So because I know you had a story behind it.
Yes.
And I want to highlight that as well. I've just got to find. I've got way too many emails. It might be like I'm setting up some sort of event coming up next weekend, which, Lord have mercy, I didn't think it would go as crazy. Excited people, but yeah. So here we have Christina. So thanks for joining in, and thanks for spending time with me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, and I was impressed by the list of all the guests that you've had so far, and then I was like, yes, I'm in there too.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. I mean, in 2020, just starting to do these video interviews and just simply saying, okay. I want to kind of have fun with people and just kind of make it like a relaxed, laid back type thing. Yeah. And I want the end part to be talking about things that we can do to make a positive impact on people. So, I'm still baffled that people say yes every time. So, but it is so nice when I do get people that want to come on and just.
Oh my gosh, you hear that? You hear that trampling going on upstairs?
I don't.
Good.
And that's partly, yeah, that's why I wear these headphones, is so I can listen for it, because in case, like, if my kids are like going crazy or wild, then I'm like, oh my gosh. So
right.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about it as much. But
Rob is known as the loud peg, mostly because he just has a very loud, boisterous voice, but he's also just loud existing in the world. So if you hear him stomping around, that's what's going on.
I always find it funny because he's always listen, pegheads, and kind of starts out with like the little story of some sort at the beginning of every episode, and it's kind of like a little quiz and puzzle, which I love that you all do that, because you've already in the beginning you've invited the people that are listening to get even more involved and entrenched into the way you all think. So.
Yeah, and then we tricked them by going off topic for however many minutes before we actually talk about board games. So I'm impressed that people have latched on to the trivia as much as they have. Mm-hmm. And we've kind of evolved it over the years, but it's also super fun for us to do, just trying to come up with all these different unique off the wall things that we find. And we've learned a ton of stuff just based off of the trivia that we've been looking into, and the listeners like it. So whatever we can do to make them happy and content, that is our mission.
So tell us a little bit about how you got involved in board games and what led to the creation of Blue Peg, Pink Peg, because that's something that, not everybody talks about their journey, and I always like to hear about somebody's journey and where they came from, or where they're going.
Yeah, so my journey, I didn't have one before I met Rob. I was not a gamer. My family played the traditional family games like Pictionary and Scrabble and all of those kinds of things. And then when I met Rob, Rob was a gamer. He was into D&D. He was into Warhammer, like all of those things. He played online a lot. And so when he and I got together, he had told me that he played board games and tabletop games, and I was like, well, what do you mean, like D&D? And he was like, no, not that. Because I think I had this huge misconception about the whole world of gaming and D&D, just because I didn't know what I didn't know at that time. And so he really introduced me into the hobby. We had new neighbors that had moved in next door who invited us over, and we played Ticket to Ride, and that was my very first kind of tabletop game. And from there, I enjoyed it so much that Rob was like, oh, I think he took that opportunity of like, oh, if she likes this, then I'm just going to expose her to everything. And then it just kind of took hold from there. We enjoyed playing games together and then with our friends. And then the show evolved in the sense that Patrick is one of the other co-founding hosts of Blue Peg Pink Peg, who comes back onto the show every now and then. He is retired. He and Rob did improv together, and their improv kind of ended, and they still wanted a way to be creative and create content and art. And so they wanted to create a podcast. And this was kind of back in the early days. So they were trying to find a niche of what wasn't being represented in the podcast community for board games at the time. And it was women. And then it was also relationships, people really having conversations about how gaming impacted or improved your relationships, whether that's with your paramour or with your friends or your family. So we kind of took that as a springboard to make Blue Peg Pink Peg a little different than what was kind of already on the scene for board game podcasts. And it just kind of exploded from there. We had no expectations. We didn't have any really understanding of if it was something people were going to want to listen to. And we started grassroots, much like I think a lot of people do when they start a podcast or a show, kind of like in your basement with your laptops and your handheld mics, and you're just trying to figure it out. And then it just stuck, and people liked what we were doing. So we just kept doing it. And the show's evolved from the very early days. We just recorded episode 189. And if you go back and listen to our early podcasts, we apologize for the quality of the content because there were many nights of recording where the laptop just like died on us mid-recording, and we lost everything, and we'd have to start all over again. And it's been a project of love, and hurdles, much like everybody else in the industry. And we've just been so wowed every time that we get feedback from our listeners and the community that we created and fostered with Blue Peg Pink Peg. I'm amazed every time when I go to our Discord channel and I interact with our listeners, just kind of not knowing the impact that the podcast has for people. It's pretty powerful and pretty awesome.
Well, I mean, and I agree. It is awesome to see what you all are doing, or actually listen most of the time, just being able to enjoy it. And like you said, you don't always talk about games. You talk about relationships. You talk about your relationship with your child, which is great. And you talk about the experiences that you have playing the games with them. And that's kind of something special, because there's sometimes where you'll hear the podcast and be like, oh yeah, we were playing this game. This is the mechanics, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And you're just kind of like, okay, this is good, but I can watch a video and kind of get the same thing and it be only maybe 5 minutes. Whereas you all you do like these nice, long, well-rounded episodes, which are almost, 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes even longer.
Yeah, I think like when we do our deep dive, that's probably comprised about 45 minutes just of that real rich conversation about our one highlighted game. The episodes have been getting a little lengthy. I think we're at 2 hours right now, kind of everything together, which was great when people were commuting to work. They loved that our episodes were long because it helped them kind of burn their commute time. But now that people aren't really commuting and are working from home, that's an interesting dynamic of like, how do we adapt to that as a podcast to ensure that people can still listen to us in the manner that they were before and feeling fulfilled at the same time. And it's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. I mean, for me, it's I'm working at my desk and I have the podcast kind of playing in the background, and so it's like, okay, it's Monday or Tuesday usually is when I will probably play your podcast, and so for me, it's just kind of like, okay, I'll just let it play in the background. I do my typey thing, and I just kind of relax, and it's what I do. And sometimes it might blur through, but then like there'll be certain points where you'll do the re-roll like type thing, where you're all like doing different songs. I think the one that I enjoyed was when you all did, I think, re-roll to roll your boat, roll your boat, which was pretty good. But yeah, it's enjoyable to be able to get that kind of just in depth, but at the same time have the levity and the humor and the relationships, and even the part where Patrick wasn't on the show. May he rest in peace. That kind of idea, which was hilarious, because just the fact that like for a period of time I was like, did he really die?
No,
what happened?
Right.
So, but yeah, no, it's enjoyable to get those kind of experiences and listen to them. So I think that is something that I personally have enjoyed. What has been the game, though, that you all have been enjoying a lot as a family? Now, I know when it comes to content, we get a lot of games that we are trying to get in and be able to play and then talk about and discuss. And then we may not get back to that game for some time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What have been some ones that really have been repeats and have really been ones where you've been like, okay, this is great. Harper's loving this one. We're going to play this, over and over again. Or what are ones that you're like, this was good, but I wish I could go back and play it again as much as I wanted to.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of being a content creator, is that it's always the input, right? We're just inundated with input of material and games, and which is great. Don't get me wrong. I love being exposed to all the new stuff that's going on. But there's like a little tiny part of my heart that just always like, I'm looking at my library going like, oh, I want to play you and get with you. And so it is tough to balance kind of that workload of the content versus your enjoyable plays that you keep wanting to have. Mm-hmm. We as a family, we play a lot of Dominion. A ton of Dominion. Rob's got all the expansions and he went all in, and we just love pulling that back to the table, and it's something that we can play easily. It's not a game where we have to refresh ourselves of the rules. Harper hasn't quite played that one with us yet, so that one hits the table more with our friends. And then with Harper, she loves Marvel. Anything Marvel, she'll eat it up. So we've been playing Legendary with her. That one gets to the table quite a bit, and probably like as the repeat offender, that's the one we enjoy. But there are a ton on our shelves that we keep because we know we love the game. And then we just have a hard time getting them back to the table until those certain scenarios arise where it's like, wait, I have the perfect game for right now. And then we've also been playing a ton of Skull King. Rob loves trick-taking games, and that one.
Oh, yeah. Grandpa Bex. Grandpa Bex is so good. So good.
Yeah, so that one's a really good one, and we have a lot of fun when we play that too.
Yeah, I think it's awesome that you can actually go right onto the rule book and see Grandpa Beck's phone number, call him up and actually have a conversation. If he's available, with him. And it's like, Grandpa Beck, I'm having a question about these rules. Can you go through this? I mean, don't get me wrong. We can always go to Jeff. And Jeff, we love you, Jeff. Just understand we love your dad just a little bit more. But, it's like we can actually take the time and just say, Grandpa Beck, can you walk me through this rule because I'm confused? Or just like, or if you just want to call him and tell him, hey, I hope you're having a good day today. Like he recently retired from airport from being a pilot. And so it's like, let's call him up, tell him, hey, happy retirement, man. That's awesome. But yeah, no, Skull King, so good. We still have.
I'm horrible at it.
Do you have the old version, the Scheming and Skull King, the old one before they called it Skull King?
No, I don't think we have the old one. I think we have the newest version of it. But yeah, if there's a trick taking component in a game, Rob will want it. Mm-hmm. And he's really good at them. He's good at counting cards. He's good at all that kind of stuff. So he loves those kinds of games. I'm horrible at that kind of stuff. Like I'll play and it's enjoyable and fun, but I'm not good at it. Maybe that's why he likes to play with me, because he knows he'll always win.
I don't win. I don't, my win to lose ratio against my spouse and against my kids it's pretty bad lately. It's just, they have a strategy. It's called eliminate daddy at all costs. To the point where sometimes it feels like they're having that same mentality in a co-op game, but I'm like, we can't do that. We can't.
We're on the same team.
Yeah. It's like we have to defeat Thanos. Our goal is
right.
Thanos, not me. I mean, yes, I'm bald like Thanos, but no.
Well, maybe they just see it as like, they see you as the threat, right? And so they have to eliminate all possibilities of losing by eliminating you.
Oh yeah, no, we played Tiny Epic Tactics one night, and my son and I teamed up, and then he just at some point was like, I don't feel like you're being much of a team player, Daddy, and then he kills me.
Oh,
so yeah.
Just like that.
Just like that. Just like that. It's how my kids, I don't know where they get this from. It's not from me, I swear.
Well, I think that's cool. And that's what I've noticed with gaming with Harper too. And what I think families can appreciate with gaming with their kids is that environment of gaming, right, allows your kids to be vindictive and spiteful and, attack you as a parent because it's in the nature of the game. And so they can do all that at the table. And then later they don't do those things because they get it all out during gaming.
Yeah, it's true, because you think about it, they get to enjoy the experiences of eliminating somebody and doing those things. And that is so true. And I think that games also have made it possible for our kids to understand how to lose graciously and not in that competitive mindset. Like, okay, you lost the game. It's all right.
Yep.
It's done. Because it's a game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes you go to some conventions and it's like, this is their life. And I'm like, dude, it's a game.
Yeah.
You're around your kids right now. Let them enjoy it.
Yeah, it's so, and not knowing this earlier before coming into the hobby of like just the richness of what gaming offers to people outside of the enjoyment of playing and having fun. Because I think that is a big element that people take for granted, that we are having fun. And that's the idea behind it. But it teaches you so many other things outside of just let's have fun. Like as a child, you can work on reading and, understanding strategy and just puzzling and like things unlocking in your brain. And I think there's just so much to offer in gaming that it's like the slogan needs to exist. Like everyone needs to game. I don't know. You just learn so much.
No, I agree. Now, one thing we had talked about before you had come on was this thing. I'm going to quickly put it up on the screen, and I'm going to let you talk about it a little bit. So,
oh, yes. So this is Blue Peg Pink Peg's mascot. This is the piranha pig, which some might think like that's the most unusual mascot and logo to have. Like, how on earth did that even come to fruition? So we have and if you listen to some of our earlier podcasts, we did episodes where we had like hot seats where we would do rapid fire questions to one another and kind of put each other on the spot about things. And Rob had asked me if I were to play D&D with him, which I had been really averse to doing, and we have not yet actually played D&D together because of this reason. He asked me what character I would want to play. And I told him that I would want to be a scout. And he was like, okay, well, that fits. That makes sense. And I said, well, yeah, I want to be a scout that has like a backpack and like a cannon, and I shoot piranha pigs out of it. And he was like, what? And so I was explaining my character, and he was just like, you can't do that in D&D. And then I was really confused because I thought in D&D you could pretty much do whatever you wanted. And he was like, no, there's rules, and that's not allowed, because once you shoot the piranha pig out of the cannon, what happens to it, or where does it go? I was like, oh, well, it attacks whatever you shot, and then it comes back to its owner and gets back in the backpack. And he was like, no, that doesn't, that's not a thing you can do. So we've had this huge argument for the longest time over whether or not my scout piranha pig wrangler character could be in a D&D game or not. I think it can. And so that conversation, just that 10-minute conversation about a D&D character spawned this idea of a mascot, and it's just kind of stuck, and it's everywhere. It was our main logo for a long time. And kind of how people identify blue peg, pink peg when they see the piranha pig. And it's super cool because it was in it's a promo card in the Oceans game by North Star. And then it is also it had some really awesome art done for it to look like a real creature. And then it is also going to be in the new Frosthaven game as well.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
That will be neat. Now, how on earth did you get that worked out with different publishers? So how did you develop those relationships where they're like, hey, let's put this weird random mascot into a board game?
Yeah, so Rob developed a pretty early relationship with Isaac Childress in regards to Gloomhaven. He was a huge fanboy of Gloomhaven. And we met Isaac at a convention and just really clicked with him on a personal level. And so, and also Rob and Isaac have this like super healthy competitive relationship where, because Isaac is super smart. He's genius level smart. And they love playing Terra Mystica together. And Isaac always beats him. So they have this really healthy / unhealthy competitive relationship on beating one another. But Isaac had just thrown out the suggestion of like, hey, like, why don't we put this in like Frosthaven? And we were like, what? And he was like, yeah, let's do some art and make a creature out of it. And we were like, okay. And so he had the art done. And then when North Star was looking at doing a promo, he had got with Isaac and asked if he could use the same art that's going to be used in Frosthaven for the Oceans game. And so there was just kind of that collaboration across publishers, which is super awesome to even think that could be a thing that happens. And I think it just goes back to relationship building.
Oh, no, I agree. I think one of the nicest things, like you go to a convention, you don't see somebody combating or competing with somebody else. You don't see Haba competing in a way with like kids table board games. It's not, they walk up to each other, they relax with each other, they actually ask how they're doing. When convention season happens for publishers and even media and everything, it's kind of like, it's like a reunion. Like we get to hang out. It's like, hey, we get to see each other. Hey, I wasn't there last month at that convention, but you know what? I missed you all. I'm glad I'm here now. Let's all go out to eat. Like seriously, I know in Philadelphia, they've got that ridiculous smorgasbord of food that I really want to go try sometime. But like, that's what they do. It's not like the Coke and Pepsi thing where it's like, well, we're Coke, we need to be better than Pepsi, and Pepsi needs to be better than Coke. It's instead encouraging each other. Like you'll see different designers go to different publishers. Eric Lane did stuff with Calliope. Then he went on to do stuff with CMON or Come On or Cool Mini or Not or whatever it's called now.
Right.
And so you see these different designers and publishers, and they're taking their talents to different areas, and they're helping each other and encouraging each other. Like you see a lot of indie designers. It's like, okay, I did some work like here, and they're like, hey, you all should look at this one. We're not going to work on this design right now because we've got this other stuff on our slate. But hey, this guy's great. You should use him to do this next game that you all are doing. I mean, that's kind of how our industry works for the most part.
Right. For the most part.
For the most part, just stay away from Twitter and everything will be okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's beautiful that like you said, it's just we're not overly competitive. You know, you're on here right now. We're not in any way competitive. I'm not like, oh, ha ha ha, I'm going to try to figure out the tricks of the trade. Instead, if I were to come to you and I were to say, Christina, I'm looking at doing a podcast one day. God forbid that ever happens for me, because I mean, don't get me wrong, I have the face for radio. So, but if I ever said, hey, what are some tips that you all had when you got started? Mm-hmm. I know that I could actually get that advice.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's nice about our community. It's not like
no one's, I mean, here's the thing is like, how are we supposed to improve our industry if we're all like keeping it to ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. And trying to monopolize a corner of the world. Like the number of, just like looking at sheer numbers of podcasts that talk about board games, 5 years ago, there were maybe a handful, a dozen. Mm-hmm. And now there's like hundreds, and they're all different and unique and are doing different and unique things. And that's the beauty of podcasting, because it's, it's art in the sense that what people like to listen to and enjoy, they're going to find and align with something that they get quality content out of. So it's really interesting to see like just how helpful everybody is. We had people that were helpful for us. And then when we get emails like saying, hey, we're going to do this, what do you think? It's like, here's all of the stuff that we found out. And hopefully this is helpful for you. Because it is a little bit of a stab in the dark, and you just kind of dive right in, you head first, and hope that the pool is full of water and that there are people there to help support you when you do it.
Yeah, I mean, even today, like I don't know, I think you all are on the media group page as well on mm-hmm. Facebook. But like today, somebody was just asking something very simple, saying, "Hey, how should I go about? Does anybody have any advice for going about sponsorship?" Mm-hmm. Like not sponsorship, like in serious levels, but more along the lines of asking about doing giveaways.
Oh, mm-hmm.
and so the conversation was, well, guess what? People were on there. It wasn't like, oh no, I'm not going to tell you my secret trick or anything like that. It was instead, it's like, hey, just reach out to them, let them know what you're wanting to do. If they say yes, that's awesome. If they say no, no harm done. It's just right. That. It's how it is. And I mean, that's how we respond to each other. And I'm very thankful for that. Yeah. Thank goodness for that indeed.
Yeah. For people helping. Yeah. We would be lost without helpers.
Yeah. I mean, we have, of course, Travis lives here in this area from Queen Games, and he talks very well of you all. And I know you all have come down to visit and spend time with us when we have CharCon and stuff like that. And of course, I look forward to another CharCon where you all can just come on down.
I know this 2020 was going to be the year that we were all coming down, and then the pandemic happened. So hopefully, as soon as that happens, we're all of us, Patrick, Jeremy, Rob, we're all coming.
Well, hopefully, I think that will be probably 2022 is what it's
right. Yeah, I saw the announcement, and I think that's smart. I think it's, not being someone that puts on conventions or even is responsible for planning and organizing a convention. I can't even imagine kind of the turmoil that the last year and this year is causing folks. Yeah. And it's really stressful and tough. And I just, appreciate the work that people put into the decisions that they make about that. Cause I know they're not light decisions, but I know they're tough ones. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it's wise what he decided to do, because CharCon is very much a not-for-profit convention. Mm-hmm. It's a convention basically to give people a chance to be able to have something like that in the state of West Virginia. Right. To be able to have a convention like that, you don't have things that are usually that affordable or be able to enjoy that type of atmosphere. And then when you have nice publishers come by and you have different podcasts and different organizations come in and invest in it, that means a lot. So they're very much, they very much live off of Kickstarter, where Kickstarter basically helps provide the cost for the building and everything. And then people pay the admission, which helps basically pay for the rest of it. So
right.
Yeah. So
2022, we'll all get together.
I cannot wait. I cannot wait. I seriously cannot wait for convention season to pick back up and for it to be safe for people to be able to go out there.
Can you imagine though, Chris, what's going to happen though? We've been on like a 2-year hiatus of being used to seeing all of our friends at least once or twice a year. You know, it was like adult summer camp and we haven't had that. So when we do have conventions again, I'm a little nervous of how crazy people are going to be because they're just going to be so excited.
Well, I've already told people, I said, for most of you, like I've said, I'm going to give hugs with consent, of course, but I am going to come charging at you because I'm going to be that excited to be around you. And so, you know, it will be nice to do that. But I think also people are still going to be very cautious, even in 2022, even late 2021. I mean, there's going to be a lot of cautiousness because coronavirus, or at least COVID-19, and then this mutated strain, people are still very worried. And there's still people that aren't going to get vaccines for different reasons, some medical reasons, some not. And so the question is, okay, what are we going to do to make it still a safe and protected environment for people coming in? And I think that's really what we have to just continue talking about is, okay, how are we going to keep promoting the publishers who are working so hard and trying to keep their staff fed and be able to pay for their staff? How are we going to continue as media to be able to make that possible on our end to keep promoting? And so that way 2021 won't be as brutal as possibly 2020 was. How are we going to take the virtual conventions and still make it something fun and engaging that people aren't going to be tired of looking at their computer after so long?
Right. When they've been doing that all day for work. And then it's like, oh, on the weekend, now I want to do this fun thing. And it's also virtual and just, it's been a wild 2 years. I mean, I know it's only been a year of COVID, but it's felt like a little longer than that.
Oh gosh, yes. It really has. I mean, with everything else that's gone in the world during 2020, I mean, just go through the month of January and February, and then you're just kind of like, this all happened in 2 months, and then the rest of the year, and you're just kind of like, So
it's interesting. Like I was having a conversation with a friend, and we're kind of getting off board game topics, but I think like all of the stuff that's gone on the last year and a half, like what are the long-term effects going to be on everybody's mental health? Because I think this pandemic, even though it's a physical thing that's going on with people's physical health, I'm already seeing the mental health impacts for people, and it's just crazy. And, you know, coming out on the other side of it, what is that going to mean for everybody and how people are going to manage that? And so it's really been like this just mental health warfare for the last year and a half for everybody.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I've been going through therapy just to help myself. I mean, and
I love therapists. Everybody needs a therapist.
It's so good because you're able to kind of talk yourself through these things, and you're going to learn more about the way you think. I mean, just understanding like maybe there's repressed memories or even just stuff that you don't recognize about yourself that your therapist helps you to understand. And I mean, there's a lot of depression. There is a lot of depression that's going on. I mean, you know, like you said, we have been so used to going to camp every other month or something like that, and just seeing all these super cool people and having like our own little mini vacations. And right now we're not able to have that.
Yeah. And I'm sure for you, we've felt it kind of like when you go to these conventions, you kind of get your cup refilled, right? You get that back from either your listeners or people who support you or enjoy you. And so you kind of get filled back up and you're like, yeah, I'm going to use this fire and this energy to keep doing what I'm doing. And then when that all got cut off, it was kind of like, okay, like I have to find other places to fill my cup because I'm not getting it the way we used to. So it is super appreciative about, you know, what we had when we had it, right? And you kind of look back and realize that the conventions were doing a lot more for us than I think we took, you know, that we realized, and we probably took for granted.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, by the time you're done with the convention, you're exhausted beyond
Mhm.
comparison. I mean, even these virtual conventions, you get exhausted because it's like you're constantly on. There's not a
Yes.
moment of rest in between. But yeah, no, there's something nice about seeing the people's faces and being to do that. And I think what's great is what you all have done is you've went from Slack to Discord,
Mhm.
right? And I
Yeah.
know that was a new leap for you all, and I think a new website as well, or at least a new website that was developed, if I'm correct.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so, but the Discord aspect, I think that is the one thing that has been thriving, is that continued feeling of community, because then we
Mhm.
go on, we can turn on our video, we can talk to people, we can still play games with each other. Like for me, there's I've been playing Halo. I've never really got into Halo, and then there's somebody in my Discord, Justin, who's just amazing. And I know that if we wanted to play Halo, we would play Halo. I'll probably
Mhm.
get shot a lot, but that's kind of what it is. It's just one of those nice things that the Discord has definitely helped out with.
Yeah.
But yeah, I truly do long for the moments where conventions will start back up and where we can make those interactions happen.
Mhm.
I know for me, I look forward to taking it into the level of just being able to go out and do some of the community stuff that I'm wanting to do.
Mhm. Yeah.
Whereas I'm able to do that here where I am, and I'm able to do that kind of outreach and reach out to helping out towards smaller communities in our area. But there's something really cool when you're doing it with the people that you've been looking forward to seeing for so long. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. All the
Now,
feels.
there's so many feels right
There's
now.
so many feels.
And we're not going to help the feels get any better, because right now we are going to talk about something that is so important. And when Christina let me know about this nonprofit, it broke my heart a little bit, because this is something that is very serious, that definitely doesn't get talked about maybe as much. And when it does get talked about, it is going to pull at your heartstrings, because these are real things that happen to real kids.
Mhm.
And this is actually the national, and I'm going to pull it up real quick. And that is the National Children's Alliance. This is actually a children's advocacy group, which really does help out. I'm going to let Christina talk about it and why it's important to her heart. I'll scroll through. You tell me where to stop and what to do, okay?
Okay. So, yeah, so the National Children's Alliance is kind of the parent organization and the governing body that helps run and oversee the children's advocacy centers that are all across the country. So you can see some of the statistics there. There's over 900 centers, CACs for short, that serve children in the communities. And just this last year, their 2019 data, they served over 300,000 children at their centers. And what the CACs are is they are centers or facilities where law enforcement and social services can take children who have been victims of abuse and neglect. They can go, the center where they can go and get services. The two most powerful services that CACs offer are forensic interviews, and then also family advocate services to help support that family through the trauma that they just experienced. The NCA is super close to my heart because I work at a children's advocacy center. I've been there for 14 years, and I'm a forensic interviewer. So I am one of those people that talk to children about the things that have happened to them. And it's super important because without CACs and without the work that the NCA is doing, kids are kind of getting dropped and falling through the cracks of cases and just not having the support that they need to be able to navigate having experienced this horrific trauma, but also just how to navigate what happens after that. Like, the criminal justice system for kids is not ideal. The wheels of justice are slow, and families need help navigating what to do with that, impact on them and their child. And so the National Children's Alliance does a ton of awesome stuff. The biggest thing they do is they help provide federal funding for children's advocacy centers across the country. And this last year, I think they lobbied with legislation for the Violence Against Children Act to increase funding by 20%. So they're not just kind of there to say like, oh, this is what CACs need to do and these are the services we provide. They're literally fighting every day to ensure that these services are offered in communities that can then offer them to every child that potentially needs it. And Chris, I think you hit it on the head. I think the fact that this conversation is not talked about enough is huge. The sad reality is that most children don't ever report about their abuse that they've experienced. I mean, we know that adults have a hard time coming forward about their own abuse. And so imagine being a child and not knowing what to do once you do disclose, or even having someone that you can talk to that you know will believe you and feel safe and is interviewing you in a way that's appropriate and child sensitive. So it's a issue that I find near and dear to my heart, because I think the more that lay people or the community is aware of the prevalence of abuse and neglect, the more opportunities we have to kind of help the kids in our own community, because they are our future. The kids in our community are the future of our communities. And if we don't invest in them, if we don't provide intervention for them when they experience trauma, then we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot of what we want to create later on down the road.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about organizations like this, one of the biggest things I think about is abuse. Because I mean, this really does help out with trying to at least figure some of those things out. And I mean, it's sad that we even have to have these discussions.
Yeah, and what's even crazier is like this pandemic has like shifted how kids are able to report abuse, because the number one mandated reporters typically are schools and teachers. And so kids haven't been in school at all. And so who are they reporting to? And we've actually seen a huge decrease in reports of abuse and neglect over the last pandemic year, because kids aren't around people that they feel safe they can tell things to, which is a huge problem, because we know that abuse didn't stop, right? It didn't. No. People didn't just decide one day like, oh, we're not going to abuse kids anymore. It's still happening. And then the other thing that this pandemic has done is that it's driven children online, right? Kids need to do their schoolwork online. They need the internet to do things. And so kids are driven online, which is now where offenders are really targeting our victims more often, is online. Yeah. So this pandemic, not only kind of the things we talked about earlier of adult mental health, but just the impacts that it's having on our children and our communities and the abuse that they've experienced is insane. And I'm a nerd for like statistics and research and stuff. And so I'm really fascinated to see kind of the long-term effects of the pandemic on child abuse and neglect, as it kind of comes as we come out on the other side of it, to see what really is going on. But I think if I were to tell anybody, the biggest thing is that abuse and neglect is happening in your community. It's probably happened to someone that you know, and you're just not aware about it because they haven't told. And to kind of maybe educate yourself a little bit about signs and symptoms of abuse and neglect, so that if you do see something or someone says something to you, that you feel comfortable and confident enough that you can help report it and then help support them through that process.
Yeah, the worst thing that I think that people can do is not speak up. If you're an adult and you see a child that is very much afraid, there's possibility some form of possible abuse. It's sad.
It's pretty rampant. Our center and the kids that I work with, about 90% of them are sexual abuse victims, which child abuse and neglect is hard enough to talk about. But then you throw in the component of it being sexual abuse, and that really is, it's such kind of there's such a taboo around that topic that people just, don't want to admit that it happens. They'd rather push it under the rug or just not accept it. But then not knowing what to do with that. And it's not funny, but, you have to find humor in lots of places. But when we're out at functions in the community and people ask what I do for work, and I say, I work at a child advocacy center, and I talk to children who've experienced sexual abuse. Like, it's a big party killer. Like nobody wants to talk to me about that. They kind of are like, oh, and then they go away.
It's because I think people aren't willing to be uncomfortable. And it's an uncomfortable topic because it's a real topic. People don't like being vulnerable sometimes. People don't like being real and being open and understanding and listening to what's really going on in the world. I mean, there's sex trafficking, and people are very quick to not bring up or talk about those things, though they happen every day.
And I think as a parent, you have to know about that stuff. You have to be willing to accept that it's out there and that there are people that do these things to kids. And then how do you protect yourself and your own child from that? And then also, how do you support them if that happens to them? So it's such a huge problem, right? And those of us in the industry of, helping kids and helping to reduce child abuse, we always say that we're trying to put ourselves out of the job, knowing fully well that we never will. But the NCA does such a good job of supporting frontline workers who every day are working with child abuse victims. And we honestly, our communities would be in a much worse place if the NCA did not exist.
Yeah. Let's see here. Just so everybody can see this right now, go onto this site. I'm going to quickly put it into the chat as well. I want you to take a look. I want you to get to know about the organizations. If you're a parent and you have kids and you need to talk about just some of these things, just, if maybe they have a friend that maybe has felt that way or has been abused in some way, whether it be verbally, physically, sexually, or anything of that nature, here's ways for you to get involved and be able to get to actually help.
Yeah, they actually, on their main page, I think on the top, they have resources. So if you're a parent, you can go to their resource. I think it's under the Learn section. There's all kinds of opportunities to learn about child abuse, what to do if you see it, how to report it. And so they do a really good job of really helping putting the tools in the hands of the people that need to have it to make a difference. So my other suggestion would be also, see if your own community has a child advocacy center. Child advocacy centers are grassroots organizations. So even though we have the NCA, they are still all mostly nonprofits, and they do a lot of stuff just inside your own community. So if you're looking at a way to help give back, or if you're looking for an organization to help support, CACs in your community are a great way to help move the mission forward. I think if you go to the under the Abouts page, I think you can, where you can find your CACs. They're all over.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I like that. And I also like the learning aspect. There's one that we talk about. We've had serious discussions with our kids of, okay, these are things that you got to be cautious of. These are things you need to watch out for. This is our policy on the internet right now. This is what we're going to kind of do. There's a reason why we're doing it that way. Trust us. Like we have these serious conversations like, okay, if we're going out to a store, this is what you do in response if somebody tries to grab you. These, God forbid it ever has to happen, but it's happening to other people's kids. It's happening to even, like, it just still, there's not words that I can say other than just disturbing and discouraging and sad. So
yeah, I think, to end on a high note about this, is that, it is happening and it does happen to kids. But with intervention, right, with people doing the work, kids are super resilient and they can be resilient. And so I think that is a positive note, that if you have the ability to help, either that by reporting it or just supporting a child going through that, you're helping build resiliency in them for them to kind of heal from their trauma. And so I know that it happens all the time. We just might not see the long-term effects of their resiliency, but there is light and hope at the end.
That is the truth. I do appreciate the fact of what you personally are doing for kids as well, because you're giving them a chance to be able to be open, to be honest, to be able to take care of them, to help them get the help that they need, which that is so important. And you're also helping out with social workers and with the police to be able to take care of the situation so that these kids don't have to go through these situations again. So thank you for being an advocate for these children. That is,
yeah, I love my job. I don't think I could do anything else, which seems weird because it is a dark corner of the world to work in. But I think
you're being a light to those kids.
Yeah, it's an important part of the world to be in. And so I enjoy my job, and I thoroughly want to thank you, Chris, for letting me talk about NCA. I don't get to talk a lot about work a lot of the time, so I appreciate that you gave me a platform to be able to share.
No, it's my pleasure. I mean, it's good for us to talk about board games. I think that's a great thing that we can talk about. Just with the way that I've always wanted my format to be, is I want board games to be part of it. Mm-hmm. But I want the end to be all about the good that we can do at the table together. That's kind of where it comes from. It came from my mother and the way that she was with people. And so I want to continue and carry on her legacy in the way that we treat others. And so organizations like this are very important to our family. We very much, we're part of an organization that's anti-trafficking. So it's good to hear more of advocacy and preventing abuse. So it's beautiful. So thank you for this. Folks, if you are interested, that is nationalchildren'salliance.org. You can go on there. You can learn stuff. You can actually help educate yourself, as well as educate the signs and learn these different things to watch for with kids. And also, if you want to be a chance to be a wallet, you can also donate, so that way the people that are trying to make a difference, even people like Christina, are able to continue doing the great work that they're doing. So, Christina, thank you for coming on tonight.
Yeah, no problem. I had a really good time, and I can't wait to see you in person.
I can't wait either. I think it will be a blast, and I do truly look forward to the chance where we can enjoy these conventions and just gather at a table. And it's not even just the games. I think it's just, being able to say hi in person and then go get a bite to eat. Because there's something about, I haven't had Jenny's ice cream yet. So I know. Well, when you go to Origins with a very limited budget, as in, okay, very limited. Like, I did not walk away with a game that convention. I walked away with some afterwards for working it. But when you go to those things, it's like, okay,
you have to make sacrifices.
And you make the right sacrifices, and it's worth it. So, because at the same time, you can't be like, hey, I'm going to take this nice vacation, spend all this money, and then try to figure out how I'm going to pay for all the bills later. So, it doesn't work that way. But I truly do appreciate you coming on. Folks, also take a look at Blue Peg, Pink Peg. They've got podcasts. I think it's on Apple Podcast. I listen to it on the Google Podcast. I think you're also on Spotify as well. Is that correct?
Yep.
And Amazon just recently started doing the podcast as well. So
and you can find us everywhere on Blue Peg, Pink Peg. That's Facebook. That's our Twitter. That's our Instagram. That's our email at gmail.com. So website. Everything is Blue Peg, Pink Peg.
and the previous, also you could see them in the previous Game Topper Kickstarter videos that were like the Sherlock Holmes type stuff.
Oh my gosh, right.
Those were so good. That
was fun. I love when collaborative ideas come together.
Well, it was great because you had was Eric Summer doing the voice of Watson, and just the whole story unfolding. And you're like, why is Blue Peg, Pink Peg in this? What's going on here? It's like, what? It's like, I'm confused. But no, it was so good. But yeah, folks, thank you again for watching. Remember, if we can gather at the table, we can do the same for a good cause. I'm going to go ahead and play us out real quick. I hope you all have a great night. We'll be back in about 30 minutes or so to play Finding Anastasia. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.
We also want to thank our sponsor, Greenbrier Games. Be on the lookout for Lost